Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coffee People podcast presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastar.com. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt. We're in the middle of season 15, so there's been a lot of episodes up to this point, and you can find all of them on your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now YouTube. If you're there and looking for them and you find them and you listen and you like them, please hit like a like button or 5 stars or write a review. Whatever you do, we get a little warm and fuzzy whenever someone does that. We really appreciate it. If you'd rather have us just send you this show, go to coffeepeoplepodcast.com. You can scroll through all the episodes or sign up for our newsletter, and we'll send it to you every week with a bunch of context from the episode. Okay, now that that is out of the way, I hope that you have a good cup of coffee at the ready, because we're going to get into the conversation with a new guest today. Thank you for being here with me on the Coffee People podcast. Cheers. I tried not to learn too much because I want to learn it today, on the show. But it was actually pretty easy not to learn anything about you. There are a lot of James Sheppards. I made a list even. Recently, there was a James Shephard, spelled the same way, by the way. I had it spelled right in my notes. Who was an attorney. He was charged with conspiracy to defraud the government of Turks and Caicos. I'm assuming not you. There's a Scottish professor who was a leading pioneer in the investigation and prevention of coronary heart disease. There's a real estate agent in Southeast England. In America, you got the founder of what became North Carolina Central University, one of the first Black universities in the Southeast. Also a pharmacist. Right down the street, there's a lecturer for the Christian Science Church named James Shephard.
All the same spelling? I mean, is it
all the same spelling? Very specific. There's a guy who makes pop arts focusing a lot on Cheetos. His name is James Shephard. And a champion cornet playing musician from Northumberland, also James Shephard. I did have to look up what that was.
That kind of sounds about right. That definitely sounds about right.
So the point is you have a name that people know, and if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the audience with your name and where you work and kind of what your title there is.
Sure, no problem. Just tell us now, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. My name is James Shephard, and I work for Bombora Supplies. I look after kind of sales, definitely around the North American market. That's my kind of position and role. Bombora Supplies, they kind of do coffee supplies and obviously water filtration and cleaning and everything in between. We're kind of a company that try to be neutral. We try and supply everything apart from coffee beans and coffee machines. We try and supply everything else in between. That's Bombora Supplies.
I like you neutral. You're like the Switzerland. We don't judge your coffee. We just provide you the means to make it and drink it.
You can roast it as dark or as light as you like. We're there to help support you.
You mentioned that you're kind of in charge of the North American market for Bombora, but where are you based?
Yeah, I'm based in Ireland, in Dublin, Ireland. So thankfully, we're not too far away. Sometimes people question that and they kind of say, so you're in Ireland and you're looking after a market that's already behind time frame wise. But just to confuse it even more, the company I work for and represent are actually Australian, based in Australia. So again, a completely different time zone. But I think my kind of day would start very similar time zone to obviously East Coast. So of course, I'd maybe start a little bit later and obviously carry on through. And then I would take maybe a gap or an hour or two. And then I'd still be online doing calls at my 10 p.m., my 10:30. But that kind of works in favor then, obviously, for the morning time if I want to spend time with the family or do car runs or drop-offs, that kind of thing.
Sure. Do you Do you do most of your job virtually then? I mean, I met you in real life here on the West Coast in Portland
Yes.
not long ago. Uh,
That was
I mean,
lucky for
how
me, not so lucky for you.
gave me someone to talk to that I could curse in front of. Uh, how often are you traveling back and forth over the ocean there?
So we're very much in person. We want to deal with people and have a physical presence, not just be virtual and
Hmm.
not just be an email or website. We actually want to deal with people face to face. We kind of see that approach, that old style, that old fashioned approach, as still the way to do things. I think that I would be in the US or Canada or wherever every 5 to 6 weeks. We normally plan a trip,
Wow.
and so on that kind of planning aspect, you're kind of making sure of what area you're going to, what customers do you have there, making sure you got appointments obviously organized, and then follow up calls. We try and keep it as lighthearted as possible, and of course now we've built up good relationships. We've got friendships, so it's more about friendships and network and relationships. Hence where we met in Roast Summit.
Um, I have all these questions kind of about your backstory, but that leads me into something I want to make sure that we get to, which is we're at a weird time in the world politically. I think everybody thinks they're always at a weird time, but this one feels like travel is a little bit more confusing, especially people traveling to the United States for work. Has that impacted what you do or how you have to think about your trips and your travel and your work stuff, or how you are, because you're importing product kind of all over the world. So I would imagine there's kind of a daily, okay, what's our status today, which is not necessarily how it's been.
Yeah, without doubt. I think obviously we're in challenging times. There's no one in our industry, not just in North America, but I think across the globe, that are being impacted by challenges, whether it be shipping costs or whether it be tariffs or the price of coffee. Even if you take that subject away, but we're a manufacturer. We manufacture products and
Hmm.
we export them and we obviously import them around the world. I think obviously a lot of our products that we do make are made in China. And if we're obviously importing them into the US, then of course there has been recent challenges right now, but nothing that we haven't faced before. I think it's more a case of reviewing that, looking at that, and assessing it day by day. It's changing, week by week, it's changing. But I think that we're not alone. I think that anyone who is doing what we do are in a very similar boat. We could talk about competitors. Of course, our competitors are in exactly the same boat. I think it's frustration, but I think we just want to make sure that it's more personal. And I think that that relationship comes down to making sure you have a connection with people. We're fortunate in the fact that Ireland has a good relationship with the US, and when I say we have a good relationship, you pre-clearance in Dublin, Ireland. So of course, when I leave Dublin, I'm clearing US immigration in Ireland. So as soon as I land in the US, I'm landing as a domestic flight. So of course that just takes it. Thankfully, there's good relationships there. It also saves on time. I'm not
Hmm.
standing in a queue and say Chicago Airport for 3 hours. I'm straight on through, just like you.
Uh, right. Didn't they just announce, I think as we're talking like yesterday, Europe, the EU is going to a biometric system for American citizens. So
Correct,
we'll have to
correct.
get fingerprinted on our way in if we want to
Yeah.
continue on. So I've been, we just got back from an overseas trip. And so that was, you could see the machines were being set up as we were there for that purpose. So it's just an interesting time for people who like to travel, people in an industry that requires it. Uh, you weren't always in sales with Bombora. I mean, it'd be impressive if they could have you like the second you came out and you just put you to work, but I don't think that's how it works. Do you have any first memories of coffee or your first coffee experience? You mentioned to me that you didn't drink coffee until you kind of got into the industry, but when was that? Where was that?
Yeah, sure. I worked. So initially, there was a job that popped up. I was working for a company, and I was looking to complete career change. I was selling kind of smoothies and slush drinks, and wanted a complete career change, and wasn't really enjoying it. And of course, I was with a recruitment company, and they sent me a note and said there's a job as for representing a coffee roaster in Scotland, in Glasgow, Scotland, and they're saying they're looking for a salesperson and would you be interested. And I didn't drink coffee. I had no interest in coffee whatsoever. That was about 20 years ago. And I went for an interview, met a guy, and we got talking, and obviously he invited me to the roastery, and we kind of hit it off early on. And he said, "Would you like a coffee?" And my wife had said to me before I went for the interview, "What are you going to do if they ask you for a coffee?" I couldn't tell you what a latte was. I couldn't tell you what an espresso was. And I said, "Lie." So, of course, he said, "What would you like?" And I said, "Whatever you're having." And he said, "I'm going to make a latte." And I said, "I'll have one of those." So he produced a double shot espresso. And I was like, "What is that?" And, of course, he then foamed the milk and steamed it. And he wobbled his head as he did it. And then very carefully, we both went back into his office and he sat down. I sat down. He lifted his cup and he missed his mouth. And the coffee went all down his chin, all over his tie and his shirt. And that just broke the ice. I put my
Yeah.
cup down, didn't have to drink it. And the rest is history. I got the job. So, yeah, that's a true story. That's a true story.
So you take that job with the roaster, but obviously you've continued on the industry. You mentioned that was 20 years ago. How did your kind of coffee education progress then? And I have notes here like that you were a barista at some point, or you were competing as a barista.
Yeah, so the company that I did work for at the time, they were a Scottish roaster. They were 140 years old as a family business, and they were like the sixth generation. The person who owned the company at the time, he was a massive innovator, leader, and just a forward thinker. He created a website called coffeepolice.com. And you're talking in the early 2000s, even before that. And it was basically to report coffee crime. I mean, and it was basically, it was barista trainers.
That's
And they would
brilliant.
go out and you could obviously report coffee crime. His whole model was if you were customer facing, then you had to be able to pull good shots of espresso, steam good milk, and over a period of time, then he would encourage the staff members to get their customers to enter barista competitions. The downside was I tried to encourage my customers, but none of them were really willing to enter the Scottish competitions. But I then kind of fell into obviously competitions, and then after competing for a few years, you get absorbed into this thinking and feeling that your coffee and what you're doing is the best. And it's not until you probably start competing that you're able to mix with others that are doing exactly what you're doing. And you're able to taste other coffees and you're able to obviously experience that. And after 2 years of competing, I still didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I thought I would go forward. I thought I'd go forward to judge. And
Yeah.
I was really fortunate to judge for the UK, for the Irish Championships. I know that was a really interesting time in Ireland because we'd moved from Scotland over to Ireland with the same company, and it was very much what was happening in the Irish coffee scene, and that was which is now one of the most dominant in Europe right now is the Irish coffee scene. But I was lucky enough to judge in the Worlds, and then by that, all through volunteering, I was invited then to take part with the World Coffee Championships, which what people know now, and then on the back of that, invited onto the European board, and that was literally before the two organisations merged, before the two European and the US organisations merged. So yeah, I was part of that.
I would like to point out that you said something that I feel like I have also said numerous times in my life, which is I didn't know what I was doing, so I went on to judge other people and what they were doing.
Well, competing. So of course, it's more a case of go and learn about the rules of the competition in a way. And
Mhm.
I think that if anyone's ever competed and then they've gone into judging, I think there's an awful lot more empathy there because you've been on the other side. There's an awful lot of people that just go straight into judging, and of course they haven't had that experience of being behind a bar. They've not had the experience of shaking like a leaf, trying to memorize your coffee descriptions and presenting your coffees. So of course it's an extremely intimidating thing. So anyone who competes, and of course Milan is coming up this Friday, and that's where the World's Barista Championships are taking place over the next 4 days, 5 days, over the next little while.
It kind of reminds me of somebody who grows up, gets a job in a bar, a restaurant, a coffee shop when they're young. They work their way through that versus somebody who goes to college, gets a hospitality degree, and then they're both up for the same job. And it's different skill sets. It's not to say one path is better than the other. It's just the experience of having been there on the ground when everything goes wrong creates a foundation I don't think you get necessarily just from theory.
Definitely not. Again, back to what you said originally, like a part of our induction and part of our training, no matter where you were working for that coffee roaster, the roaster, the owner actually had a few coffee shops called Tinderbox in Glasgow, and he would encourage the staff to put their hands up and say, "Hey, go and do some shifts, experience this. So when you are talking to customers, you've got some knowledge on this." And I was lucky enough to do a few shifts. Probably enjoyed it more than others in terms of that chaotic side. But it was a good learning curve, and one you try and take. I think regarding all of this, I think the most important thing, you could bring it back to what we discussed earlier on. It comes down to that face-to-face contact that we talked about earlier, and there's nothing more engaging than being able to interact with somebody on a one-to-one, whether it be in a group. You can only do so much when you're online. And I think we kind of learned that from our pandemic time when everybody went virtual. And that's very much where our company right now stands. And that is that they've realized, yes, you can do so much from afar, but you have to be face-to-face. You have to be able to go and see people and present and talk and educate. It's all about education.
Well, and it's harder to say no to someone who's putting in the time and the effort to come and see you. I mean, it's easy to say no to an email.
Yeah, it's been many no's.
But a lot of times it's not necessarily a no because they don't want or need or a product or a company, but there's no context in an email. You can't ask an email a question. You can, but you're not getting that instant response and back and forth, which is so important. In sales to me, there's some competitive aspect to it. You were a barista competitor. Did you compete when you were young, sports or activities or anything like that?
Yeah, of course, really badly, but I still competed, that way. But but not on any high level whatsoever. Like even now, I try and play golf, and I'm absolutely terrible at it. I would run, and that's my thing. But yeah.
I was talking to someone in the coffee industry yesterday, and they said that they were going to take up golf so that they would get used to losing money and feel more comfortable with it, which I thought was pretty funny. You're out and meeting. You mentioned the board that you were on as part of. I don't think you're doing that now.
No.
But what value do you find in groups like that, or not, or where do they get it right or wrong in because the barista circuit and the championship circuit and the festival circuit that you and I have been on in some cases is different than the day-to-day of coffee. So what's their purpose in the world? What is their value to the greater good of coffee?
Yeah, really good question. I think if you obviously there's standards, isn't there? I think there's through every industry there's standards. Through any sport, there's a federation or there's an organization. There's a group of people that would probably try and set those form of standards, whether that be in the building construction industry, whether it be in the mechanical motor industry, whether it be soccer or NFL. So I think regarding our side of things, when you talk about the coffee industry, the Coffee Association is pretty much seen as that kind of that go-to in terms of writing programs or education or certifications. I think there has to be a standard. There has to be kind of a level. It doesn't mean to say you have to follow it. I think there's a great way in saying that just because someone's telling you how to do something doesn't mean to say it's right. Does that make sense? Like you could, there's definitely some pluses and some benefits regarding what the education system would be and what the standards are. But of course, there's others, and I would kind of be on that side as well. That it's not to say you have to do it that way.
Usually if someone says I have to do something a certain way, my instinct is to veer into that.
Yeah. However, I'm of that. I'm probably more of that now. But I think if you're starting off and if you're kind of new into the industry, or if you're looking for some form of a career path, then there's a great opportunity regarding what that education system offers in terms of what the SCA offers. If you're looking for that barista basics, or if you're looking for the roasting aspect, there's certain aspects that can definitely be improved. I mean, for instance, if you look at all the competitions, the one competition that probably doesn't get the same attention, and it's probably far superior, is, in my experience, is cup tasters. The cup taster championship is all about skill on the palate. There's no judges, there's no presentation. It's a spoon, and it's down to then tasting the triangular of coffee in speed, and obviously only one is the odd one out, and you have to try and guess what the odd one out is in 8 rounds, and it's the fastest one to do that. That's an incredible competition. That's to me, it's the best competition. No judges.
I don't even think I could just do that with the coffee that I have in my hand right now. And it's such a unique skill set. I find that tasting coffee in particular is something that I really have to focus my intention on. I have to kind of block out the rest of the world and just, this is the thing I'm thinking about. But the second something else breaks into my brain, I've lost it, which is
Yeah.
why I don't do coffee tastings as a general rule. You mentioned Ireland as being kind of a dominant force of the coffee industry in Europe. You're spending a lot of time between both North America, Western Europe. Um, what do you see as being maybe cultural differences as, in the coffee area specifically? I mean, what is trending over there versus over here? Or do you see it all being kind of homogenous because of the internet and because of the TikToks of the world?
Yeah, there is a homogenous effect that's happening. There's no question. I think I, I would say it depends on what region you're talking about. It depends on what state you're talking about regarding the US. I think that certain states have more of the chains. There's a huge amount of chains. Of course, you have a number of chains. That you don't just have the Starbucks. You have the Seven Brews. You have various others as well. Obviously, and whereas in Ireland we literally have maybe one independent chain, if that makes sense, which is completely independent. It's an Irish chain. It would be known as Insomnia Coffee, versus the other brands, which obviously which we all know, which would be Starbucks.
Hmm.
That's pretty much it. I mean, there's a big thing here in Ireland where it's about independence. There's a big thing here about supporting local. And that's obviously we're counties as well. There's a number of counties in Ireland. There's County Dublin, County Cork, County Galway, obviously a number of them, including the counties in the north. And I'd like to think that there's a huge regard to those that are roasting. There's an awful lot of those that are roasting, which of course there's always a little bit of competition, but there's more kind of synergy in terms of sharing knowledge, more about the community. If there's events happening, if there's a public cupping, or if there's the AeroPress Championships, everybody gets together. There's still one kind of large Irish roaster, and they've always kind of led through education. They're over 150, 160 years old, and they're kind of like a household name, if that makes sense. So if you go to someone's house and they have that brand of tea or they have that brand of coffee, there's a nostalgia there, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But of course, the micro roasters and some other larger roasters as well have done a very good job in obviously helping to develop that market.
I would say that if my understanding of basic history is right, independence has always been a big deal in Ireland and Scotland and in England.
Yeah, I think people are proud. I mean, obviously, yeah, they're very, very proud of where they live, where they're from, and also that would come down to their county as well. So they'd be extremely loyal to that particular area. Of course, they'll love Ireland, but if they live in a particular area, like County
Hmm.
Meath, for instance, which the neighbour County Dublin, they'll be very protective of the county that they live in, and they'll be vocal about it in a friendly way, but still very vocal about it.
Sure, that's an interesting thing that I think a lot of Americans are going through right now. I know, I am the pride of place. Even if you disagree with things or agree, you don't have to necessarily uh, be proud of the place you are at the detriment to others. You can just be proud that I represent this place. There's a coffee roaster in Wisconsin, which is the state that I'm from, called Ruby Coffee, and they do such a great job. And I'm very impressed with the business they've built in a very small community. And it makes me proud to be from a place where someone is doing that. It has nothing to do with anyone else's is game, and that's kind of how I relate to it. Uh, you know, you've been doing this now for, you said, almost 20 years. Yes,
20 plus, yeah.
20 plus. Uh, how has your perspective changed as a salesperson from then to now, knowing that it's going to be impacted both by outside factors, but also you growing as a person and your family growing and what you want out of life?
Yeah, I think the most important thing there is you cannot get cynical. I think it'd be very easy when you're in an industry, any industry, for so long. It's hard not to get cynical and be
Mm-hmm.
pessimistic. It's probably not within my makeup to be that kind of person. I'd be very much an optimist. I'd always look to see what the positive is, and kind of be grateful for the opportunities that we actually have. I think literally today we had a call with a new startup, for instance, in South Carolina. They're looking to start up a business. They're looking to have a physical store, like an actual walk-in store, look at the products, hold products, as well as having an online presence. And they're not going to be a roaster, but it's trying to speak with them and actually allowing them the knowledge, allowing them the opportunity to say that this is an extremely good industry. They've not come from the industry; they've come from a medical background in terms of selling medical supplies, and they've taken the path because obviously they see something interesting what the coffee industry is. And from a very short space of time, they've actually recognised that the willingness of people in our industry to help and to support is second to none. And I think that that's not just in Ireland, it's not just in North America. Thankfully, that is global. And I think that when you consider the challenges that we're all going through, whether they're personal, whether they're business, the great thing is that we all come together for what is a cup of coffee. And we can talk about it until the cows come home. And we can learn from each other. And I think that even when you consider we went to Roast Summit, you look at people there and you had all different ages, you had all different experiences, and you had those that were in their infancy, you had those that maybe been 5 years in the industry or 10 or 15 years in the industry. Everybody was supporting each other, and that's what is really, really impressive. So it's hard to be demotivated by that. You kind of get uplifted.
I would almost consider that to be like good coffee smarter advice, for somebody in the industry. I'm wondering if you have a piece of life advice outside of coffee, just something that you kind of live by or that you've heard over the years that has stuck with you and you apply to your day to day.
Oof, yeah, help people, like help others. Like generally, like there's so many times where people try and crawl over others, but it's a good thing to help other people, and whether that be in our industry. I think I've got kids. My kids were like I think it's we can offer something, if that makes sense, and I think there's an opportunity for youth to get more involved, and I think that like a youth project for coffee is definitely something that I'm passionate about, and that I'd like to be able to have some form of impact with. And because you're helping people at the starting stages to say, hey, okay, there's something definitely here. Whether you go in to be a barista, whether you go in to be a coffee tech, if you want to be front of house or back of house, there's something along there. If you want to take it with you on your travels, if you want to go and study and do whatever that degree might be, if you want to come back to coffee will always be there for you.
When you say youth, I assume youth is anything younger than me by one day.
Well, I consider maybe 2 days, maybe two.
Okay, 2 days. How does your family feel about your international commuting? Do they think that's cool? Do they miss you? Are they happy you're gone for a week every now and again? I mean, how do you manage that balance?
Well, I get 5 weeks back at home in the house, like when I'm not traveling, between 5 to 6 weeks where I'm physically here as a person, and of course I can also be that annoying guy, very annoying guy. So there's definitely times where like, please go, and then there's other times like, hey, like welcome back. But yeah, there's always a balance. I've been more present in physical like person in this job than I have in previous, and yeah, I think that's important as well. I think thankfully. Some people in the house find me funny. Not everyone, but some people find me funny. And when they don't, then I try and keep my mouth shut, which is kind of hard.
Another good piece of advice. My wife and I are about to celebrate our 20-year wedding anniversary. And
Congratulations.
I learned a long time ago that it doesn't matter if I'm funny to everyone else. It only matters if I'm funny to her.
Yeah.
So as long as she's laughing, I'm okay. And
100%.
That's my only advice to anyone thinking about getting married or in a long relationship. I'm drinking a local roaster called Sister's Coffee today. It's a lighter roast than maybe I would normally go for, but I'm really enjoying it. Even though I'm not terribly effective at brewing coffee every morning. My question for you, and it's a question I've been starting to ask people, is what makes for a good cup of coffee for you?
Oh, gosh.
Is it the coffee? Is it the extraneous? What is it that makes it? So for me, it's Yes, it's just the fact that it exists is always nice. And in the morning, it's a routine for me. But that is almost more important to me than the coffee itself. So I'm curious as to where you land on that line.
Yeah, I can be totally honest with you, and I'll tell you. Obviously, I drink a lot of coffee. I try and stick it to 1 cup a day, and it just I always try and have a coffee in the morning. I would generally do what needs to be done, and then enjoy my coffee before having food. Before I have to leave the house, if I have to leave the airport, I'm very fortunate. I've got an espresso machine, and it's a good espresso machine, a good grinder, and obviously I would always have a flat white. That's kind of my coffee of choice. There's a roaster who's literally a stone's throw from us. He's less than a mile away. He roasts. He's called the Studio Coffee Roasters, and they actually supply a national chain of stores. And I can walk into our national chain of stores and pick up 2 of his bag of beans and throw them in my hopper, and I've got good coffee. Does that make sense? So, like,
Yeah.
also really lucky that people will give you coffee whenever you go to visit them. Not always, but a lot of the time, you can come back and you can maybe share that amongst your friends who probably won't appreciate it in the same way that we might. But yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a good espresso machine and a good grinder, and I've generally always got some good beans. So, and a flat white's my choice. That's my choice.
What what's the future for Bombora? I mean, are you guys growing or actively trying to grow, or what is the? There's always going to be a need for supplies, but we're in an interesting time of contraction as well, or consolidation rather, maybe not contraction. What's the future hold for your company and for your role in it?
Yeah, sure. I think obviously I mean, without the sales pitch, but we are a 20-year-old, 21-year-old company based out of Australia. And the first products we ever started to sell were water filtration and coffee machine cleaning. They were the 2 products that we started with. And then that allowed us to create and develop the brand, which is known as Rhino Coffee Gear. And
Hmm.
it allowed us to create the other brand, which we have, which is ours, which is known as Brewer. And on the back of that, we've got some lifestyle brands behind us, which we represent not just in Australia, but also in the North American market. The machine cleaning and the water filtration still accounts for about 60% of our business. We manufacture close to 7,000 SKUs in our product line. It's about being innovative. It's about being sometimes first to the market. And you can be first to the market with a product that you know is going to catch on and you know is going to be copied. But it's very important to be first to the market at a good price before everybody else copies it. Does that make sense? And I think we've
Yeah.
been fairly innovative when it comes to that. I think not setting back and just resting on the products that we've created. We're always trying to invent the next thing, and that might be from a stainless steel milk pitcher to a range of different colors in terms of those milk pitchers. So everyone else might just bring out the stainless steel or the white and the black. Does that make sense? It's what's next, and it's obviously we listen to our customers. It's vitally important to listen to our customers, get that feedback, try and have the products. But for the future and us in North America, I think it's a long game. We've been in the US for over nearly 9 years now, and we've got obviously warehousing, we've got staff on the ground. We'd love to invest more time. I think that's the most important thing. But the most important thing for us right now is to be there to support our staff, to support our customers, number one, and making sure we have the product for them as well.
I don't know that I really understood before we talked today that your company was manufacturing the products as well as selling them.
Yeah.
Looking at the website, you see all the different things, but I didn't quite understand that part of the story. And I could be wrong, but maybe that gives you, as a salesman, a better understanding of how the product works and the history of it and why it has value beyond than just, oh, it's a SKU on my list here.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think we're very fortunate to work with some really good partners as well, which we have exclusives with, if that makes sense. So Comodanti hand grinders, the Cavetto cleaning, and of course Nucleus coffee tools. There's some product lines which are we kind of talk about the good, better, best, and there's the ones that you definitely should have, nice to have, or could have. People kind of forget about the cleaning. they don't really put it on the radar, but it's a product that has to be used every single day. Like if you want to have obviously functional, cleaning, hygienic machines, then obviously cleaning is the thing they kind of forget about. They almost look at what's the new hand tamper with the needles on it, or what's the vibration tool known as the NCD Pulse, but they forget about the practical side of things. So it's making sure we have more practical things and just being relevant is vitally important.
I have a question for you from an interested third party who sent this to me and wanted me to ask very specifically, but they were wondering if you could speak to how good you are at the arcade game Duck Hunter.
Well, I would say if I've had a beer or two, I'm really, really good. And if I'm really focusing, then I'd probably be terrible. Yeah, let's be honest.
I was thinking about this morning and just a little bit on the arcade thing, but I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s as a kid, going to play video games at the bowling alley or wherever I was going. And it was my first lesson in finite resource and also budgeting. And it was because there was this transition between when video games cost a quarter to 2 or 3 or 4 quarters. And so I could play there'd only be one video game. And if that's the game I wanted and someone else had it, not available, finite resource. But on the other side of that, if the game I wanted to play, say NBA Jam, was 75 cents, but Miss Pac-Man was a quarter, did I want one game versus 3, over the course of a morning? And quarters weren't always easy to come by. So a little lesson you can find as you get old. This is my advice to anyone listening. You will find lessons from your past everywhere.
That is, especially when it comes to budgeting on how many games you can play. We never had them in the bowling alleys. Our amusement arcades were called Puggies. It was shall we go down to the Puggies, and you jump on your bike literally and not have quarters. We'd have obviously 50 pence pieces or 20 pence pieces, and but I was never as good at the budgeting as what you've just suggested. I had no regard or thought. I just put it in. It was Kickboxer or whatever, Street Fighter it was we were trying to play.
Yeah, I was always...
It's amazing how fast you can go on 2 fingers with those buttons.
We just stayed in an Airbnb that had a Miss Pac-Man machine, and it was the first time I think my wife has ever seen me so focused. She's like, you should focus like this when you're like cleaning and stuff. And I was like, it's different. Anything that I missed today, or anything about coffee or the industry or Bombora that you wanted to share that I didn't get to?
I think I'm really bad, believe it or not. You might not know this, but I'm really bad at answering questions. I'm much, much better at asking questions just because I'm normally on the other side. As a salesperson, it's good to keep people talking and to get information from them in terms of that extraction. So it's not natural for me, if that makes sense, because it's not the norm. It's not the norm. Is probably what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Well, I think you did just fine, and I could, that accent, no problem. Smooth.
Cool. No subtitles.
Well, I didn't say that. James, a real pleasure to chat and learn more about you. Anyone listening, you can head to bomborasupplies.com. That link will be in our show notes and in our newsletter. And if you need coffee supplies, reach out to James Shepard.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Sliding into your screen is not just any coffee can, it's a Roastar coffee can. Don't need thousands, personalize just one in Roastar's Design Lab. No design experience needed. Choose a pattern, add your logo and text, or create something memorable with AI. being made in the Midwest, you can expect it on your doorstep in no time. Now that was smooth.